channel once again with Game Time with Doc, Lurch, and Greg. As you can see, I've got my new starting soon sign up on the screen right now. It's because this weekend I'll be doing the stream for Extra Life, so I just have it prepped and ready to go. The stream is going to look a little bit different today as well because of that. I'm kind of experimenting with how my stream is going to look for the whole day on Saturdays. So instead of having to change over a bunch of different overlays, I've got them all preset. So we're going to look a little bit different. Let me go ahead, though, and bring it out so you can see us all in stunning color again. Hey, how's it going?
Great and fancy.
Yep, this might be how we go forward. I might change to this overlay. Not sure
good.
yet. Yeah, but it's a nice looking overlay, I think. Anyway,
Yeah.
for those who don't know, we're with Eclectic Endeavors, the people that bring you the Gaming Arts Media Entertainment Expo, the Picnic at the End of the Universe, and Game Day at the Holdfast Brewing Company every third Wednesday of the month. And you'll see Greg there live, so you won't be here with us on those third Wednesdays of every month, but he'll be having a bunch of quick starter games to teach you board games, card games, dice games, quick intro type games, don't take too long. And he might have some mid-level games, but he's not going to have any of the really, really long ones with him. And then
No Arkham Horror.
yeah, no Arkham Horror, no Terraforming Mars, nothing that can take an hour and a half, 2 hours to play. But things like Bang and maybe even Photosynthesis, kind of medium level games could get in there. So if you've ever been interested in trying some of those new games, come on out, say hi to Greg, tell him how we're doing, tell him what kind of games you like to play, because he's always interested in learning about new games as well. And tell him what you might like to see here on the channel, because he's with us every other week. Other than that, barring life, because life happens. Another reminder, because the holidays are coming up and a lot of things like I'm getting ready to move and stuff, we are going to be taking off December for this show. This may be the first Greg's hearing about it, but me and Lurch talked about it last week. So we're going to take off the month of December and then start fresh in January. But that'll also give us some time to build up a few things to review and everything come the new year, because a lot of stuff will have ended and not quite been replaced with new seasons yet. And, everybody's busy during the holidays anyway, so we understand people will probably want to spend more time with their family and doing holiday stuff than necessarily sitting for 2 hours of this. Although if you'd like to, we do appreciate the compliment. But we're gonna take a month off ourselves, because I'm gonna be spending the month of December pretty much moving into my new house, as long as nothing comes up before closing. But knock on wood, that's not gonna happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. We should probably get a sound check going. So let me bring up the sound check real quick. We want to.
Always got to check that audio.
Yep.
Always got to check that audio.
Check 1, 2.
Always got to check that audio.
Check 1, 2.
It's to me. That audio.
Deck 1, 2.
It's like it's to me. It's like Chris Pratt doing a Mario voice.
All right.
It's a me.
It's a me. It's a Mario. Okay. All right. That sounded good. If it was a cacophony of sound, I mean, that's kind of what we were after.
Yeah.
Let me actually also bring up the chat monitor while I'm thinking about it, because I hadn't popped that out yet. Just so I can see if anybody comes in and wants to, talk turkey with us. Or
Gobble gobble.
being November, that's an appropriate way of saying it, right?
Yeah.
It's turkey month. Let's see.
Yeah, turkey season. There's not enough turkey songs though, so we got Christmas songs in all retail stores.
That's true. That is very, very, very true. All right. Well, we're going to get started. I hope I've got everything in the right order and stuff. I was kind of rushing at the end there. Plus, part of it is setting up the new interface, and part of it was me having to. I wasn't feeling well this morning, so I ate for the first time only less than 30 minutes ago, so I had to go my first trip to the bathroom right before going, and you know how that can be when it's your first.
It's a late time to start your first meal.
Yeah, so that makes it a worse time for your first trip to the bathroom too.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna get going here. Let's see, and what do we have for our first little subject? I believe I've got Lurch as usual set up first. Yes, something Game Informer.
Okay, so the story here is about Bugsnax DLC. Bugsnax is the video game Bugsnax for PS5 is getting some free DLC, and originally it wouldn't have any trophies. But Greg Miller here, he was able to get them to. And I wanted to read this article to you guys because I found this hilarious. This guy's kind of big in the video game industry. He was big at IGN for years, and then he left them to start his own thing. He's hosted E3 and all kinds of stuff like that. And so he's got a lot of friends in the video game industry and the video game journalism industry. So some of them are kind of ribbing him a little bit as they're reporting on this story. And this is probably my favorite one that I've read. So I'll go ahead and read off of here. The headline is, "Father of newborn child uses free time to get trophies added to Bugsnax DLC. Still doesn't have Peace Walker Platinum," which Peace Walker is a Metal Gear Solid game. Which is true. He's a huge Metal Gear Solid fan, but he doesn't have the platinum for Metal Gear Solid Peace Walker. Anyway, so we got done here. It's a story as old as time. Someone claims to love PlayStation trophies, even though they don't have the platinum for Metal Gear Solid Peace Walker. Finds out a game they want to play doesn't have trophies, and they go online and pester those hard-working indie developers until trophies get added. In this case, that person is Greg Miller, whom some, very few, probably, know from IGN and Kinda Funny. Most people would know him as the photographer of Washed Up Hero Shirtless Spider-Man. Young Horses, the developers behind Bugsnax, excitedly tweeted out in its new trailer for its upcoming Isle of Big Snacks DLC, shortly after the trailer aired during last week's PlayStation State of Play showcase. Excited, happy, joyful, the trailer was live. Lo and behold, who appears in their mentions? Greg Miller. And it has this tweet from October 27th where he says, "New trophies?" Game Informer continues, "This dude can't even give the team a congrats or great trailer. No, he immediately hits them with new trophies, to which the team replied, not this time. Sorry, Greg." Following day, Greg Miller tweets out again, "After a lot of thought, I've decided to make you a list for free. Please tell PlayStation you've reconsidered and need trophies." Game Informer continues, Miller then offers to make Young Horses a list for free. Again, he doesn't even have the Peace Walker Platinum, and he's out here acting like the authority on all things trophies? Yikes. And commands the team to tell PlayStation they've reconsidered their position on trophies on Isle of Big Snacks. Young Horses complies, and 2 days later, the DLC has trophies, as first reported by PlayStation Lifestyle. Then Greg Miller tweets out, PlayStation gamers, I did this for you. I won't rest until I annoy every developer into sighing and admitting a lot of us care about trophies. I love these guys.
What? I love how that's immediately followed by the teamwork handshaking emoji. I think that's what that is.
Yeah,
I think so.
It is.
So Game Informer goes on with, credit must be given where credit is due. Miller did convince /coerce/force a small indie team of developers to add trophies to its upcoming Bugsnax DLC. However, look at the cost. Miller's racked up some mighty press about how he's a PlayStation trophy tour de force. He'll surely use that the next time some developer announces a game doesn't have trophies as, quote, credibility for why they should trust him to make its trophy list. For more about Bugsnax, because you really don't need more about Miller, do you? check out our thoughts on Game Informer's Bug Sex review.
That's it. That's listening. That's not just listening to the fans, but that's listening to a mover and shaker in the gaming fandom and
Yeah.
pro esports types. 'Cause he would count as kind of an esports and announcer type guy. So you got to listen to him sometimes.
Yeah.
And those trophies are motivators. They are.
Yeah. And I've been a fan of Greg Miller since his IGN days many years ago, and followed him over to Kind of Funny when he branched off. And like he's a father of a newborn child that was just born a couple of weeks ago in October, and so he's on. He took 2 months leave off to take care of the kid off of work, so his channel's running without him right now. But he can't help but still get involved in what's going on in the video game world sometimes. Another article by GameSpot, their article about it referred to him as unnamed fan. Like when they were writing up the article, someone else, I think his name was Timur Hussein, who also has worked with Greg and is friends with him, told the person writing the article, when you write this, never mention Greg Miller's name. And so the whole GameSpot article about it just repeatedly refers to him as an unnamed fan. And it's been wonderful, but I do enjoy the net gain we get out of it is more trophies for this DLC. I appreciate it whenever I like trophies, and I know there's quite a few people out there that do. And I think it's a cool update they're putting it into game. I read that apparently before they put out the game or the DLC, the developers had discussed it and decided it was more work than it was worth to do. And then sometime after these tweets are going out, someone in the team sent out an instant message to their group chat. I don't remember if it was Slack or Teams or whatever they use for their group chats, but a private message to the team at the developing studio and said, looks like we're going to be adding the trophies.
Nothing wrong with that. I mean,
so yeah,
like I said, trophies are motivators. I mean, I'm not that huge of a collector of PlayStation trophies, but then I'm a very, very casual PlayStation player. People who play it all the time, they like to just see the number of trophies go up and up and up.
Yeah. And like the whole Metal Gear Solid thing, part of what caught my attention of Miller's work is his knowledge of Metal Gear Solid early on, many years ago. And he's kind of self-professed himself as one of the biggest Metal Gear Solid fans out there.
But he doesn't have
the platinum. He has the platinum. He has the platinum trophy on I think all the other Metal Gear Solid games, but not for Peace Walker specifically. Which I can't blame him. I don't have that platinum trophy. I mean, I don't have a couple others either, but I don't have that one. I've worked on it, and it is a hard as hell trophy to get. It's a lot of work. But people give him a hard time occasionally on even his own show about not having that platinum.
Now I think it's probably a matter of pride not to get it.
Well, he has a lot. His whole job is playing games and trying to keep up on new games and do reviews on. Well, yeah, kind of doing game reviews and game news stories and things like that. So he's constantly playing new games. And Peace Walker came out in 2012, I think it was 2011, somewhere in that window.
So he's not going to go back just to get that trophy
as much as he likes it. Yeah, I don't imagine. I know he still plays it from time to time, but he can't dedicate the time it takes to get that while he's doing everything else. I think you have to get an S rank on every single mission. I think that's the really hard part. I was the part I never was able to do. I think I did everything else but that, if I remember right. I'm a little hazy on the details, though.
Okay, EC Legacy has joined us in chat. Welcome, Legacy. We've just finished up that article. Let's move on to the next one. And that will be one for Greg. Old Gods of Appalachia tabletop role-playing game announced.
Yeah. If you haven't heard of it, Old Gods of Appalachia is a rustic horror / cosmic horror podcast. I've listened to a few episodes of it, and I really enjoy it. It's got kind of a Dresden Files, but way out in the backwoods kind of vibe. And they are getting an official tabletop RPG adaptation. Steve Shell and Cam Collins, the creators of the podcast, have announced that a quote well-respected game company will produce the game. They haven't announced who's doing that yet. It says a formal announcement will be made on November 12th.
So not too long away.
What little I've listened to, yeah, not too long. Also, no details on when this will be released or even what game system it's going to be based on. But they go on to talk about how podcasts and RPGs have been so intertwined with all the actual play podcasts that are out. Things like One Shot, things like Plus One Forward, things like one of our own local flavors, Role Playing Public Radio.
Critical Role, Sirens of the Realm.
And Critical Role. And it'll be interesting to see that feedback loop feed back into, we have a horror podcast. We're going to make a game based on the podcast, and then speculating on, will the showrunners or their cast do an actual play podcast of the game based on their own show, which I think would be a ton of fun.
Hey, kitty. Yeah, I mean, and we always have room for more RPGs. Not that we ever have room on our shelves for all of the RPGs we want.
No, that's what PDFs are for.
Yeah,
that's right.
My drive-through RPG account runneth over.
Ain't that the truth? Used to be.
That is the advantage of digital. Is what?
Yeah, used to be people bragged about how many gigs of music they had on their computer hard drives. Now they brag about how many PDFs of gaming materials they've got.
Porque no los dos.
Yeah.
I've gotten really into Bandcamp lately.
Right. All right. Well, we're looking forward to hearing more about that. We'll look out. Maybe we'll do an update. The first show, Greg's back after the 12th. I think the first show after the 12th will probably be his Wednesday. I don't know.
Next, I'll be on next week, the 17th. I'll be doing my thing at Holdfast,
and that is the first show after it. So that means that maybe on the 24th, although that's the day before Thanksgiving. But yeah, so maybe if you're back for that day before Thanksgiving, which will probably be, the way we're looking at it, our last show until New Year is the day before Thanksgiving show.
Yeah, that should be interesting.
So you come back and give us a quick update on that, maybe. All right. Mm-hmm. My turn now. Speaking of podcast and Twitch broadcast of shows, Campaign 3 has started for Critical Role. The second episode aired this last Thursday, and the third one will air today. And so I just wanted to keep people in on the new party for Critical Role. Okay. First off,
new party?
Yeah, new party. And the new party starts off, Teleus and Jaffe is playing Ashton, who's an Air Genasi barbarian. We have Travis Willingham playing what looks to be a human fighter named Bertram. He's also a couple levels higher than everybody else because it's a reprisal of a character he did for the Search for Grog one shot or short mini set. Robbie is a player that we didn't know from regular Critical Role, but for Tales of Exandria, the little short that was being played while we were waiting for season 3 to start. He played a character called Dorian, who's a bard, and I believe he is also an Air Genasi, but I'm not absolutely sure. None of these actually have their races listed. That's partly because at least one character they're kind of not, they're being a little cagey about what their race is. But that's Robbie's character. Then we have the Druid, which is Ashley Johnson's character. And I believe his name is Fawn. I can't really see that. Let's see here. Take a zoom in a little bit. Yeah, it's Fern. And she's a satyr, or she's a fawn druid. Now, funny, we've got a little robot, which is Sam Regal. They haven't quite said what he is, if he's some kind of like Warforged or some other special kind of construct. But he's a happy-go-lucky little robot on a little unicycle wheel. And he's a cleric, and from all impressions, he's like a cleric of happiness. Like instead of having a shield of faith, he has a shield of like. That's his spell. And he's called FCG, or fresh cut grass. They haven't explained why. Not yet.
All right.
Then we have Imogen, the sorceress. She is Elven, I believe. And that's Laura Bailey's character. Then we go over to Laudna. Now, she's a Sorlock, so Warlock sorcerer. She's the one that they're being very cagey about what her race might be. But she's very dark and shadows kind of described. So she's kind of interesting. And then finally, for Liam O'Brien, we've got Orem, the halfling fighter, who is kind of like their main frontline fighter. Now, if you watched any of the Tales of Exandria, Fern here has a pet monkey that likes to pester Orem, and Orem is kind of a fastidious fighter who don't get along too well with the monkey. So there's some nice interplays there, which should be really interesting going into a more long-term situation. Ashton's like a no-nonsense. He wants to go out and kind of, make some funds to further himself in the world. And he came in initially with fresh cut grass. So they came in together. The two sorceresses came in together. Dorian, Fern, and Orem came in together. And then Bertram came in at the very end of their first real battle. Because I was watching part of it before I fell asleep. 4 hours is just a lot of time to focus on everything there. But I thought I'd update people on the new party. So it looks to be yet another quite interesting Critical Role endeavor. Of course, Matt Mercer brings his entire game to life. He's not, as anybody, some people like to think, he is not the be-all and end-all of all DMs out there, but he is a quite good DM. Now, every DM that you come to play with is not going to be Matt Mercer. But then again, every player out there is not going to be Laura Bailey or Sam Regal either. That's the thing you got to remind people, especially new people that have only seen Critical Role and they come into your D&D game. They start saying, well, this isn't like Critical Role. Well, yeah, but your DM is not Matt Mercer. He doesn't have a full production crew building his sets, painting his miniatures, and doing all these kind of things to get ready week after week after week, because he just doesn't have enough time to do it all in 1 week. Also, after the new year, it does look like they're going to take the fourth Thursday of every month off to do like one shots and special shows and stuff instead. So they're only going to work generally 3 Thursdays out of the month.
Well, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Do you know if they're gonna do? If you think they're gonna do offshoots of the Critical Role campaign, or are they gonna play around with other systems and settings?
They have just hinted that they're going to take it off and do other things, but sometimes those other things will actually be these guys working on stuff, and sometimes it'll be these guys taking a breather and other members of their crew doing things, or just a small sampling of these guys doing things, or recaps, or special things like broadcasting from like a convention or something. So they're gonna mix it up, from what I understand. They just haven't given us real specifics. But of course, Critical Role and Acquisitions Incorporated, those two Twitch shows are really the shows that kind of put Twitch tabletop on the map and really got us started. Acquisitions Incorporated, of course, started first. It was the one Chris Perkins runs with the Penny Arcade guys, and they've had various other extra members like Rutherfus and Will Wheaton in their party, and they started actually in 4th edition, but it really took off once 5th edition started, and then Critical Role came about, and it was a phenomenon. I mean, Felicia Day approached them to take their campaign that they've been doing at home and broadcast it. And it's one for the history books, because it is probably the most watched live play Twitch game on the internet. And I mean, not that like I said, Matt Mercer and the gang are not by no means perfect players and DMs, because there is no such thing as perfect. But there is something special in seeing a bunch of actors and voice actors getting basically into a game that's all about improv acting.
Yeah.
Improv
Yeah,
acting
sure.
and storytelling that's their bread and butter. And the fact that they can take their voice talents and utilize them as well to bring their characters alive and give each one a bit of uniqueness above and beyond us amateur voice types who just kind of might do a few cartoon voices and some squeaky noises, but that's about it.
Oh man!
On a side note, this has nothing really to do with this, but it just made me think of something. There is a what's his name? A comedian named Michael Winslow. Now, most of the older nerds remember him from the Police Academy movies and Spaceballs. He was the guy that did all the sound effects.
Yeah.
Well, on this season of America Got Talent, he came in and competed.
What? He competed on America's Got Talent?
Really?
Yes, he did. And he got 4 yeses. Plus, he got personal honored thank yous from the judges for coming on their show. I haven't seen all the way through, but I saw that episode, and this made me think of that, because when it comes to sound effects and voices and stuff, Michael Winslow is a god. So I just thought I'd bring that in as a side. I hadn't even planned to until that made me think of it just now. So anyway, so if you want to catch up with Critical Role, if you can afford the time to sit through 4 hours once a week to watch Critical Role, you can split it up too. I mean, most computers will save your spot on a YouTube broadcast. Go in and check out the new campaign. See if you like it. See if you like the characters this time around. If it's not your cup of tea, that's fine. There's lots of live play games out there. But I personally recommend that most of my players try to watch a few episodes of Critical Role, not just to see how Matt Mercer DMs, although that's a great exposition in and of itself, but I want them to learn from the players, especially players like Travis Willingham, who's probably one of the most cooperative helpful cheerleader of players in the game who doesn't try to steal all the glory for himself. He is a great example of a player, and I love people learning from him that balance between, yes, taking the spotlight, but never taking it away from the other players, which is probably Travis's main skill. Not that and being a gentle giant.
Mm.
Okay, but anyway, we're going to go ahead and move on to our next topic, and that is Marvel Midnight Suns.
Yeah,
Lurch?
Marvel Midnight Suns. This will be a quick one. Marvel's Midnight Suns was supposed to come out, I guess you'd call it in spring. They were talking about it coming out in March of 2022, but it's been delayed to the back half of 2022 instead. We don't have an exact date yet. As usual, they said, they're using the extra time to work on polish and work on the cinematics and the cuts, the story, cinematics, overall polish.
Make it the best product they can make it.
Yeah. So, for those that might not remember, Marvel's Midnight Suns is a new game being developed by the developers of the XCOM franchise and all the games that they put out. They have several others as well. This is supposed to be like a turn-based RPG kind of game with deck of cards mechanics for various abilities and your heroes and whatnot. It's an original story based on the Midnight Suns 90s Midnight Suns team. But the players you have a new controller and they got a new character called the Hunter. That's an original character created by Marvel and Fireaxis, the developer of the game, working together. With a team featuring Doctor Strange, Blade, Captain America, Wolverine, Magic, and others to fight Lilith. Now, I am kind of curious what Captain America is doing in this, because he doesn't feel like a Midnight Sun to me.
He's not a normal
he feels
Midnight
a little
Sun.
too... Yeah. He seems a little too bright and sparkly for Midnight Sun. Wolverine's not magic-based, but he's still pretty gritty.
But he was never really a Midnight Suns featured character. I think he did a team-up once or twice, but that was it. The main Midnight Suns were Blade, and Morpheus has been in the Midnight Suns before. Doctor Strange, Magic. Who else am I thinking of?
Now that you mentioned it, have you seen or were you planning on talking about the trailer for the movie Morbius? They just put out a trailer for that this week.
No, but I have seen.
That we could talk about that a little bit in the media section. Looks pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. And speaking about Marvel delays, since you're bringing up a Marvel delay, the most recent update I got, they are now delaying Doctor Strange and Into the Multiverse from March to May of next year.
Yeah, they're delaying 6 movies, with Doctor Strange being the first of the delays.
Yep, and that was one. I was so looking forward to it being in March because that's my birthday month. I was like, oh yeah, it'd be after my birthday by 22 days, I think originally, but still, I was like, hey, that could be a late birthday present for me. Somebody take me to go see Doctor Strange. Doctor Strange got moved back. Thor got moved back. I forget what all the other ones. I think Black Panther got moved back. Mm-hmm. A lot of them. 6 movies. Those 2 being the closest that are being moved back. I don't know what the reason for the delays are. My guess is that Doctor Strange needed a delay for some reason, and then with it being delayed, everything else needed to, fall in line with that, because they need the others to come out after. Yeah, they, somehow in their timeline.
I figured.
It would have screwed up their timeline if they'd have come out too early. Or if they were coming out simultaneously, that would not have worked either.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
So
we're going to move
yeah,
on to our next
Marvel
subject.
delays.
Always delays.
Yeah.
Can't they just tell us they're going to give us something early for once? Okay, here we go.
That has happened. I don't remember where or what it was, but it's happened a couple of times.
Yeah, it is. It is happening.
Anyway, go ahead.
Next, Greg is going to tell us about Telestration's first expansion.
Yeah, Telestrations has been on the market for years in a smaller format that was like 2 to 8 players, I think, and in a larger 2 to 12 player box. It's a really good party game. It's one of the few ones I've actually gotten colleagues at work to play with, where everybody has a dry erase drawing pad. And let's see, do you have the image up? Okay, yeah, you've got the screen up, so you can kind of see what the cards look like, where there's dice images 1 through 6. You roll a die. Each player has a card that has these writing or drawing prompts, and whatever the dice lands on, each player looks at that number on their card and goes, okay, that's the thing that I'm drawing, draws it, passes the pad in one direction or the other, doesn't really matter. They'll get all the way around. And the next player tries to guess what the thing they drew is, then passes it again, then the next player draws the thing that they wrote down, and then passes it, and then the next player, so on and so forth. It's like telephone game meets Pictionary.
Right?
It's a ton of fun, and
Interesting.
this is
choices,
apparently the first
too.
expansion.
Like I just
this is apparently the first expansion they've done.
Well, like I just zoomed in on that
What was
top
that?
I zoomed in on that top 80s card, and the fourth choice down is jelly shoes. How do you draw jelly shoes?
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't know. That was just a bit before my time. I was born in '85, but
and then downtown Julie Brown. I can visualize her and stuff, but I think most of the people nowadays that I'd be playing with wouldn't know what she looked like. You know?
And I think that's going to be part of the fun of this expansion. Yeah, Salt and Pepper, sure. Love them.
You know, I can do it musically, but I don't
Lunchables.
know about drawing. Lunchables. There's what we got. John Stamos.
Animaniacs. What's Eating Gilbert Grape.
Animaniacs. You know they brought that show back?
Yes,
oh yeah, the first episode was all right. It's a little off from the original. I don't know how to. I can't put my finger on it. It's kind of like how the new Powerpuff Girls looked a little different.
I don't think Spielberg is as directly involved as he was. He still owns the IP, and so it's still under his name. But I don't think he's doing as much of the writing and stuff that he did when the first one came out. So it's going to be a little bit different. But yeah, this is a neat little perfect party game for like an office party or a retirement party, those kind of things. I could see these kind of stuff, or people going away.
Yeah, it's a good game in its own right, and as far as the generation gap you were talking about, I think part of the fun of that is going to be people who were of that time conveying these and reminiscing and talking about them, and then younger people looking at these prompts and going, "What the hell is this?" and then trying to improvise what they think jelly shoes are, or what have you.
He says part of the fun is probably going to be the oldsters going on reminiscing and the young ones saying, "What the hell are they talking about?"
I could totally do jelly shoes. I could totally do John Stamos.
Yeah, Allison's like, she could do jelly shoes, John Stamos. You know,
I could totally do Lunchables.
Lunchables. Yeah, she's got a lot of that stuff. She's got that down. But especially the 90s would probably be her good years.
Oh, yeah.
But there's 80s cards that she might not get all of, even though she was a child of the 80s.
You might be surprised.
And if there was some 70s in there, but there's not. It looks like this is an 80s and 90s set.
Hey, I'm totally 70s child.
Tia, you were born in 75. It was half over. You weren't even.
76.
76, see? And you weren't even cognizant by the time the 70s were over with. Anyway, so yeah, that's look, and it's a small enough game to pick up. Probably only retails for like $20 or something. 15.
I don't remember
bucks.
how much I paid for the full party version of the game, but it was quite reasonable, especially considering the player count.
Yeah, because you don't get a lot of them that'll go up to 12 players, which is, like I said, really great for reunions and anniversary parties and office parties and stuff. Being able to get 12 people playing at the same time is great.
Puzzle Warehouse has copies for $30 for the party pack. That's up to 12 players, so that's
which means the regular pack
damn good
is probably
deal.
about 20, 25.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, we'll be looking forward to seeing that then. I might have to pick me up a copy. Speaking of stuff I kind of want to pick up, but can't afford to, especially since I'm moving. But my next topic is an update. The Kickstarter for the Level Up D&D books that I covered a little while back, like 2 or 3 weeks ago, has about 45 hours to go. So it's getting close now. It is over $766,000 US, which means it has busted the 500,000 euros, the €500,000, which is, I believe, the highest stretch goal that they had. So it's got lots and lots still going. If I could, I would buy. There's one that just gives me the rule books in PDF. I would like to get them in physical copy, but even the PDF puts them slightly out of my range when I really consider I want to save for my moving, because I think it's like €60 for just the PDFs of the main books, and which comes to about $84, $86, something like that. That would be the $60 more for the Wizard pack, right? Which it says that's about $82 now. And by the time it closes, it could be 84 or whatever. And as much as I'd love to blow $80-some on it, and especially since I'd get the PDFs pretty much as soon as the campaign ends. Well, delivery December. So yeah, practically, I wait less than a month and then I got them. As much as I would like that, and even Allison's trying to say treat myself, it is a tough one. I've got a little over 2 days, or just under 2 days, to decide if I'm going to break down and get the PDFs. But if you remember from what we were looking at, there was a lot of nice options, beautiful artwork, and everything in the PDFs. Plus, you get the starter adventure. And like Greg was saying, you get PDFs, and you don't have to worry about finding a spot on your bookcase for them. So it is something, although I really would like to get the physical copies, but that would be like a 120. So basically, right now that'd be $164, and I know I couldn't afford that. I know once I pay my my rent, I'll have about $450 left, and then I've got a bunch of little bills in there, so I could do it, but I have to convince myself. But I wanted to give everybody here that was kind of interested a heads up that it's about to end. If they wanted to jump in and get these wonderful books. Now, they're not Wizards of the Coast. Normally, I'm a much more of a stickler for getting the books that come out by WotC and not spending as much on third-party stuff. But they've really put a lot of work into these. and it's done by the people that bring you what you call it, the in-world. So an in-world covers all kinds of RPGs and stuff. It's probably one of the biggest digital periodical sites out there right now. So it's not like you're not getting something that's not pretty close to official stuff anyway. And there's just so much. I mean, I'd love to get the collector's leatherbound editions too, but ain't no way I can afford that either. I mean, we already went through all of this stuff 3 weeks ago when I covered it initially, and for it to make over €500,000 in basically a 30-day campaign, that's insane, man. This Kickstarter stuff is taking over when it comes to financing new projects and stuff. Wouldn't you just love to be the one to come up with the next Kickstarter moneymaker? I mean, come on.
Yeah.
There's just so much, and some of these things that are winning the records are clearing like the record in the first few hours, and then just building from there. They're not even taking forever. They make their goal in like the first hour.
Yeah.
And then everything else, and then the stretch goals. Here we go. All these stretch goals are getting funded. And okay, we're up to the 550 or the 600,000 euros is the only one that they have not reached yet, and they're so close to reaching that. And that throws in another a Gazette with more options and stuff. So we get the Jabberwocky as a new monster, but of course everybody who's through the Looking Glass or read through the Looking Glass knows about the Jabberwocky. Very Alice in Wonderland, Through the Looking Glass kind of nostalgia creature. It'd be nice to see that statted out, because I don't think I've officially seen that statted out in any of the rule books I've seen. So that would be something neat to get to. So, again, it's just another quick one for me this week. Especially not having felt well today. I didn't do as much, but I thought I would update people on this. I don't know. Greg, do you plan on getting in on this one?
I don't. I've still got 4 RPG Kickstarters in the pipe, plus the Bunkers and Badasses game, the Borderlands tabletop RPG adaptation.
And 5e is not your mainstay game either.
It's not. It's a good game.
It's just.
I'd be happy to. No, it's not.
Yeah, you buy the base core books, but you don't need to go in and buy a whole bunch of alternate stuff.
Yeah, and especially after 3rd edition, I all but swore off buying flat books and like gratuitous rules expansions. Not to say there's not good stuff in here. It's just a lot that I frankly don't need.
Right. Although I would definitely say in this case, this is not at the low level of gratuitous here, but it still is rules expansion, so I understand where you're coming from. You can play the 5e game you want with just the books that came out in the core, because it's not your focus game. If it was the only game you played or the one you played the most, then you might be looking for some more options. But shoot, I can still happily play just out of the core books myself. I just like the look of these books, and I really always like to get a new monster book. That's me.
Yeah,
and that's what I might end up doing.
They look gorgeous. They look great. If I was putting time into tabletop RPGs still, I would probably be buying them. I'm just not right at this point. I'm not at it right now. And there's nothing against them. I just have too many other things and don't have time for the tabletop RPGs right now.
If I don't
But
talk myself into getting the PDFs, all of them, I'll probably get the monster book at least, which is 20 euros.
Yeah.
But yeah, sorry, didn't mean to cut you off there, Lurch. Sometimes the time delay
No.
screws me up.
Oh, that's good. It's all good.
Yeah.
That was really what I was trying to say is that they look great, but I won't be getting them just because I'm not. It wouldn't be worth the money for me.
Right.
Because I wouldn't get the value out of them. I wouldn't get.
I'm not even playing.
Since I bought my 5th. Yeah, I played I played 5th edition a little bit, and then I got a 5th edition book, and then I think I've only actually used my 5th edition book like twice since I got it. Like I think I've only played with someone on 5th edition twice since getting my book, and they were one shots anyway.
Yeah.
That we were playing, and so I wouldn't be getting the time out of it.
I just hope I live long enough to go back to playing at the table, because
Yeah.
and this is my primary game, is 5th edition. Although I don't know if I would jump in and end up using the level up stuff, or just use the stuff I want and maybe borrow a little bit from level up, like the monsters. I'm definitely going to use the monsters.
Here's how my time is going at the moment. This is how far behind I am on just Green Lantern comic books. Green Lantern. Just Green Lantern. I'm also not quite this far behind on Superman, but I'm quite behind on Superman. So yeah, I'm behind on my reading. Much less have time to keep up with a group of people on board tabletop gaming right now.
Yeah, totally understandable.
Ow.
Okay, let's see. Let's go into our next thing then, which is U.S. Senator heartbroken men watch porn and play video games. Oh,
yeah.
God. I don't even want to know what they're coming at this time.
So Missouri is in the news a little bit because our representative, Josh Hawley, senator, I mean, not representative, our senator, Josh Hawley, a Republican of Missouri, took the stage, as reported by Kotaku, took the stage at the National Conservatism Conference to decry the war on men. In a long and meandering speech, he sounded the alarm about failing marriage rates and college attendance and argued that more and more men are dropping out of the workforce and retreating in the porn and video games. Quote from what Hawley said, "Responsibility is one of God's greatest gifts to mankind, and men must be held responsible for their actions. Still, can we be surprised that after years of being told they are the problem, that their manhood is the problem, more and more men are withdrawing into the enclave of idleness and pornography and video games?" So, end quote. So basically, Josh Hawley is senator, one of our only 2 senators from Missouri, is claiming that men are watching pornography and playing video games and idle because they feel emasculated.
Well, and not only that,
and their manhood is being brought into question.
They like to equate playing video games as bad as watching
idleness,
a bunch of pornography, or being completely idle. I mean, for one thing, playing a video game, if you've ever played a lot of video games seriously, you are not idle.
Yeah.
You're as active as any football fan out there. And the fans aren't playing the game either. They're not even playing the game. They're just watching it with a beer in their hand. You are at least
good games take a lot of mental engagement.
Yes.
Yeah.
But a video game or a board game or a role-playing game or something, you're actually working. It might be fun.
Okay.
It might be fun work, but you're working.
I'll give him this. At least he's not putting the cart before the horse and blaming emasculation on porn and video games.
No, he said it's
No,
going the other way around.
he's blaming porn and video. Or no, he's
He's saying that
It sounds like he's saying the reason they're playing video games and watching porn is because they're emasculated.
It's because
Yeah.
Ben got their feelings hurt and went wee all the way home.
Yeah.
right. And
Listen. Okay, so more.
Go ahead.
Okay, more from Holly. He says, "Quote: A staggering 5 million Americans, more than the combined populations of Nebraska, South Dakota, North Dakota, Wyoming, and Montana, consume 45 hours of video games per week." Oh, he wrote that on a section on making kids softer. Oh no, I guess that was sass. I'm sorry. But okay, the thing is like about the same number of people watch that much TV. You know.
Yeah, and again, TV is closer to the whole idleness thing. You know, you're just sitting there watching other people do stuff. I mean, yeah, they're telling great stories sometimes. And I admit, I watch a ton of TV. I could easily outshine that 45 hours of shit.
and watching TV can still be a communal or intellectual activity. There's tons of people who gather around the water cooler, metaphorically, in lieu of COVID, to talk about what's been going on, or
we talk to media.
Tons of good documentaries.
Here. We talk to media every week on the show. Me and my girlfriend, we watch. The main thing we watch right now together is The Masked Singer. It's kind of a whodunit, trying to guess who the singer is behind the costume. You know, it's interactive. We're thinking, we're analyzing. We're also enjoying the comedy all along the way. But even then, it's still more idle than, like, you know, video games and shit. But there's nothing wrong with using your idle time if you've got it.
Yeah.
You don't have, for one thing, you got to take this with a grain of salt. First off, this is the National Conservatism Conference. These are very conservative people. They're very much religious. Right off the bat, one of the first things he says is God's gift and mankind.
And since when is responsibility a gift, by the way?
Yeah, that doesn't sound like a gift, does it? It sounds like a burden.
And this is also the guy who egged on the Capitol rioters earlier this year. So, like,
well, his
priorities are not straight.
These are the same groups of people that are openly protesting vaccinations and stuff. You know, they don't want to do something for the public good, but they want to sit around and criticize people who might do their 40-hour work week and then go home and relax, do a video game.
Yeah. And he wants to talk about responsibility. What about, you know, man's responsibility to a fellow mankind and getting vaccinated?
Not to mention, nowadays, you have your responsibility to yourself to look after your mental health. And that means sometimes you need downtime where you use less of your brain actively or you use a different part of your brain actively, like reading a book or watching a movie or chilling to a sporting event or having a barbecue. You know, you don't have to constantly be working 80 plus hours a week to be a fulfilled individual.
But you see, when he doesn't do something, it's because he has the freedom to not do something. When you don't do something, it's because you're a lazy piece of shit. So get together.
In his speech, he went on the site. He cited an example of a young man that was, I guess, spoke with the Wall Street Journal that he found particularly evocative and particularly heartbreaking. Okay. Let me quick get the quote right. Holly said, I found the comment by one man to the Wall Street Journal particularly evocative and particularly heartbreaking, where he is talking about, I got messed up because an ad popped up and shifted my stuff. That's what's throwing me off right now. Yeah. Okay, so Hollywood on the site is one example of his growing cohort of emasculated sinners. Jay Wells, an Ohio man who recently dropped out of a $34,000 a year college, and told the Wall Street Journal in September, I'm sort of waiting, quote, I'm sort of waiting for a light to come on so I figure out what to do next. Holly used that example as a sign of, modern men being emasculated sinners, and he dropped out of school. But he doesn't bother to mention that Jay Wells is he currently lives with his mother, but he delivers pallets pallets of Coke in Toledo for $20 an hour. So he's not doing too bad.
Yeah.
And
And waiting for a light to come on, so to speak, waiting for direction or a sign or something, that's a normal thing that people do.
Yeah.
Yes. You don't always know exactly what you want to do with your life right now. There's nothing wrong with that. In fact,
And $20 an hour is more than I make, although I don't know what the cost of living is in Toledo.
right. And
Yeah.
the thing is, we're even now starting to suggest to our students that when they first get out of college, it's a good idea for them to take a year or two off before they go to college. Get a chance to get some of their wanderlust out. Go see another country. Try a labor job. Do the other things and then come back and go to school. But take a year or two off because you just went through freaking 12 years of regular school plus kindergarten and preschool.
Yeah.
You might be a little burnt out. Give yourself a breather, and I don't just mean a summer. Give yourself a year or 2 years and then come back and hit a community college or something. Unless you're sitting on a scholarship that you have to take right now, give yourself a breather. Try an apprenticeship or an internship in another job first. Try volunteering for the Peace Corps for a year. Do something a little different. Go abroad and visit museums or hike across Europe or whatever. And that's considered actually good and healthy. You know, take on a private study project that's not necessarily school or work, but it's for your own good.
Something I take away from this that's kind of interesting is usually a lot of these kinds of people will blame the decline on the video games themselves. Like they'll be like, people are feeling emasculated or they're feeling like victims because of video games and porn. Whereas in this case, he's like, because they've been insulted, they are turning to porn and video games.
Well,
so
see,
at least he has a different take on it than you usually see.
Yeah,
it's still equal bullshit. It's equally, garbage, but at least it's unique garbage.
No, it's actually
right.
It's creative psychological propaganda because instead of blaming the porn and the video games and the idleness for what they're going through, they're making it the negative side effect to. So if anything, they're pointing an even more negative arrow at the stuff. They're not saying it's causing it. They're saying that if you do this, you're going to be punished by that.
It's a symptom of.
They're even more equating it to hell.
He's savvy enough to know that he's savvy enough to know not to point the blame at the thing that his base loves or the people that he's trying to court. He's saying, no, this isn't the problem, but like you said, Lurch, it's a symptom, but they're the enemy, and
the real reason is women want equal pay, so we need to. That's why men are on Pornhub. I don't know.
But
it's insane.
The thing is, they're starting to learn as politicians that they can't keep blaming these things because we've already enamored ourselves of that. We no longer listen to them. As soon as they start saying this is all caused by violent video games, we start saying, oh God, there's another nutso on the TV. and we change a
Yeah,
channel.
that's the thing.
Yeah.
The culprit du jour changes every few years, but the rhetoric's the same.
Yeah, they just have to
I'd actually like
sometimes
to bounce.
rewrite the rhetoric.
Yeah,
Like,
and bouncing off what you said earlier about, um, I'm trying to remember, like the changing norms, the fact that it's kind of okay. Like, there's nothing wrong inherently with being kind of shut in and watching lots of TV or playing lots of video games. And between the rise of technology and COVID, the way that we interact with the world has fundamentally changed. I was watching a video from Healthy Gamer GG earlier today. The title of the video is "How Do I Go Outside?" Overcoming social anxiety after COVID-19. And one of the takeaways that he starts off by talking about vestigial organs and comparing those to behavioral habits insofar as evolution conditions us a certain way, but as our circumstances change, the way we interact with the world changes. And we're at a point where you don't have to go outside to make a living or function as a quote unquote normal person.
yeah,
And
you can be a
to
viable
some
member of
extent, going
society.
out. Yeah, so to some extent, going outside and socializing normally and having those kinds of relationships and having those kinds of jobs is vestigial to our society. We don't need them as much as we used to, if at all.
Right.
And that's not a
It's
bad thing. That's just the circumstances of where we are.
right. We had a big pandemic come through and we're still recuperating from it. And there's a lot of people, and unfortunately, people are going to naysay me some, but probably not our listeners. The people that are part of the problem, not the solution, are these national conservatism type people who still try to convince us that COVID was a hoax. And that they can
Well,
go
they
out.
don't propose solutions. Yeah, and they don't
No,
propose solutions to anything. They just blame.
everything's
Yeah.
a blame. You know, they start arguing and yelling and complaining and bitching and moaning because, oh no, we're talking about forcing the vaccine on people. You know what? We are not talking about forcing the vaccine on people. We are talking about businesses having the rights to force it on their employees because they want a safe working environment. That's completely reasonable.
Uh,
And guess what? If your
so
employer's the government, they have the right. The government can tell the military, you must be vaccinated. The government can tell the police force, you must be vaccinated.
so back to the whole like blaming things on video games being blamed for stuff. An argument I want to start like kind of bringing up for people is like, especially if it's someone that's like really religious, like Christian and religious, and they try to tell me video games are causing people to be violent. I want to be like, what video game was Cain playing before he killed Abel?
That's right.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, fucking.
The Bible is full of sin, and
Yeah.
it was before the internet. It was before guns.
Well,
it was before
comic
automobiles.
books.
It was before
and
the
not
Western
only
world
that,
as we know it.
Yeah,
not
I mean,
only
cave
that,
paintings have violent paintings on them. We have violent cave paintings.
See, that's what it is. That was our first comic book. See, that's what caused all the problem. No,
Man has been violent since the dawn of our kind.
Damn you, Lasco.
and then going back to what Greg was saying, and the Bible is full of all these sins and stuff. Not only is the Bible full of all these sins, but if you look at it from one chapter to the next, what is considered a sin in one chapter is not in the next. I mean,
and is open to interpretation, which is exacerbated by the fact that the Bible's been interpreted to every language in the modern world.
And there's so many slight variations out there for the Bible. I mean, look at it this way. In the Bible, okay, they tell you right now, having more than one wife is a sin or whatever. But in the Bible, they said that if you died, your wife and your daughters all became the wives of your closest male relative by default. You know, that was biblical. That was the tradition. And that meant your closest male relative not only took on your wife, but he took on basically his nieces. You know, that's like
Polygamy. Do 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 do.
that was. It's not not only polygamy, but it was also incestual polygamy. I mean, you know, a niece or nephew is not far enough removed to get past, you know, the higher advent of negative mutation. But
Yeah.
of course, we didn't know the science of that then, so you can excuse that part.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you know, you're not supposed to be as an uncle coveting your freaking niece. I'm sorry. But depending on what chapter in the Bible you're currently at, when you
Family's
read,
real close.
it's like it's like you said, the vestigial things get changed as the year and the norms of society change, and we adapt accordingly. And the Bible and Christianity loves to do that while completely washing their hands of the stuff that came before that people disagree with.
Yeah.
You know, they don't like to take any blame for anything that's ever gone wrong. More war and more violence is done in the name of one or more gods than any other excuse on the planet. We say that the biggest reason for war is to own land, but no, the biggest real reason for war is men and women's souls. Because some reason the bottom of people's feet is so important. You know.
Anyway, I think we're ready to move on from
We can
this.
get off our soapbox, yeah.
Yeah. I think it's ready to get off our soapbox and get back to the fun stuff. That's my last article before we get into the media stuff. I think Greg is up next.
Yes, Greg is up next with something about Skyrim.
Yes, moving on from political schisms, Skyrim. It's
nice segue.
It's getting just put that one in the pocket. Skyrim is getting a board game adaptation. It's being produced by Modifius, the minds behind the Fallout board game and the Dishonored RPG and the Dune RPG. And it looks like they're expanding a lot compared to what they've done with other IP board games. I seem to recall Fallout Wasteland Warfare getting kind of a bad shake because of how clunky the mechanics were and how there weren't a lot of interesting choices to make. It was mostly watching numbers go up and playing out events that could be interesting or couldn't, just depending on how high your numbers were or the luck of the dice rolls. This one, I'm intrigued by because it appears to be more narrative. You remember I did the bit months ago about My Father's Work, the story game where you're mad scientists. It looks like they might be going in that sort of direction because they do have narrative chapters and elements of... Actually, I'd compare it more to a legacy game because it says they've got elements of the game that get added to the game as your collective story progresses, or even elements that get put away or destroyed depending on how the game plays out. Now, I never actually destroyed the components, I just put them in a separate container. But I've looked at the fundraiser, which isn't on Kickstarter. It's on a website called gamefound.com, which I just discovered was a thing. But they've got save boxes for the characters, so you can play a session and then put all the cards and abilities and tokens associated with your character into the box, and it's got 5 game save boxes. The number of components is kind of outstanding. It's putting Fantasy Flight to shame.
That's hard to do.
But the board you can see... Yeah, but the board you can see on that Tech Raptor article, it's the full breadth and scope of the land of Skyrim. Each player has a player board with little tokens that indicate what
Everything.
their... It's the red, green, and blue bars. So yeah, health, stamina, mana,
Right.
and I can't tell if there's actually depth in those little player boards, but it looks like there's little divots where you can put gold and I don't know what the other things are, XP maybe, or tokens like quest items or things like that. But it looks like they're working hard to flesh this out and make it a long form experience that isn't necessarily just go here, do this thing, gain XP, rinse and repeat until somebody wins by defeating the Imperial Legion or getting to level 20 or whatever.
How many players is this game again? Did you mention that?
It looks like it goes up to 5 players. I don't know if there is a solo version. But if it's a fully narrative game, I'd imagine. Well, yeah, it says fight with friends in Skyrim. I can't tell if that is fight alongside your friends or fight against your friends. I don't know the context of that.
Yeah, I mean, it says there's a couple of long narrative scenarios included with 3 chapters long. Choices as well as successes and failures will shape the adventure with multiple outcomes. I would guess with that being the case, it would probably be a cooperative experience like a D&D game.
That would be my preference.
And
they've also got expansions available.
The capability of doing both.
That could be too.
Some co-op experiences and some competitive. And some competitive co-op where you're basically in cooperation, but at the end, you still try to see who is the best of the cooperative players.
Now, it does say on the fundraiser page, the player count is 1 to 4, but the picture that shows all the components explicitly says 5 game save boxes. So I'm not sure what's up with that. Maybe
you can still have
but
5 different saves, but you only have 4 players.
That could be like have multiple ongoing campaigns. That could get clunky though.
Right.
Or even just I don't know. Maybe it's a game save box for each character, each player, plus
That's
1 for the overall group, the overall world.
Oh, that could be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting to find out, but of course, Skyrim's such a fully fleshed out, wonderful world. It's
Lurch.
It was one of the best that Bethesda had ever come out with. And
Lurch, you're right. The gray save box says board save box. So there's 4 boxes for the players and then 1 for the world state.
There we go.
That makes sense.
And there's at least 2 expansions available that can be bought right away alongside the core game. There's a Dawnguard expansion, so add vampirism and vampire enemies and things like that. And From the Ashes, which looks to be heavily ghost themed.
Right.
And tons of miniatures, of course. So if painting miniatures is your jam, then
it's always a good thing to get
the miniatures upgrade. Yeah.
I wonder.
The miniatures upgrade set alone will give you dozens of hours of fun. It looks like.
I wonder if the board game will let me fast travel across the map while using a telekinesis spell, so I can level up that skill instantly.
I certainly hope so.
You never.
What's the point of an Elder
know.
Scrolls game if you can't
find bugs to take advantage of?
If you can't find bugs and find ways to exploit the skill system.
Yeah.
There's got to be an exploit or 2 in there.
The first time I did that was an accident. I was using telekinesis on something, and I needed to fast travel from some mountain down to Whiterun because like my skill was still happening, and I was like told, "Oh, I need to go to Whiterun for something," and so I was like, "All right, fast travel there," and then I get there and it's like So suddenly that skill just racks up a whole bunch of level ups. It's like, oh, no, that's interesting. And I won't lie, I then exploited that a bit.
I didn't find any bugs to exploit, but when I was in college, Elder Scrolls 4 was out, and my first character was a warrior build. I wanted to build up my athletics. I figured out that you could level up the ability even if you were just running into a wall. So I found a corner of the city to park myself in, put a heavy object on the forward key on my computer, went to lunch, came back, and racked up like 20 levels.
Wasn't that like Morrowind? Elder Scroll 4?
That was Oblivion. Elder Scrolls
yeah.
4.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, okay. That was Oblivion.
That's
Okay.
where I started, was Oblivion.
I started with Daggerfall. So.
I've never played Morrowind.
I played Morrowind, I didn't beat it.
Daggerfall is what
I mean, technically,
I got in on the beta
I technically kind of sort of played Morrowind, but all I did with Morrowind was I booted it up to make sure the copy I bought worked. So I can't say I really played Morrowind.
Like,
I got to I created a character, got to the first NPC you could talk to, and then turned it off.
Well, like I said, I beta tested Daggerfall, which was the second one. And, I mean, some of the beta tests, they hadn't even fully finished the graphics yet, and I was looking at wireframes. but it was still...
Boy, are you...
But for
beta
the time,
feels like a hard, strong word for that.
Yeah, it's really alpha. But, and anyway, we went into it, but it was a whole new way of interfacing the game back then. It was so innovative that it just blew people away. Okay, we'll keep an eye on that too. So we've got a lot of good things to keep an eye on this week. Let's go ahead and go into what's next, which should just be my From the Vault this week is a favorite if you're a Jackie Chan or an Owen Wilson fan, or especially liking when the two work together. The first thing they ever really worked together on was a Jackie Chan production called Shanghai Noon.
Yeah, that was a fun movie.
Yes.
It is a great, fun, comedic movie, and it is out on, I believe it's either on Amazon Prime or it's on HBO Max, because I think it's Amazon Prime that I'm watching it right now. Both Shanghai Noon and Shanghai Nights, the sequel, are there. So, and I love to do ones that have sequels because it's nice to go through a couple. Jackie Chan, of course, still was relatively kind of new to some American cinema at this time. Him working opposite Owen Wilson was amazing because Owen Wilson has such comedic timing. His face is so expressive, and he's got that like broken bulbous nose that just kind of sticks in your head when you're watching him. And he plays such a he plays in this. He's the nice guy bank robber and stagecoach robber and train robber, but he's nice. He don't want to shoot nobody. He just wants to steal their money.
Yeah.
And Jackie Chan is there to try to rescue Princess Pepe from the Forbidden City, who was kidnapped by her literacy teacher, who had convinced her that he was taking her to America to save her from a marriage she didn't want to get into. And she was reading The Princess and the Frog at the time. So throughout the movie, Jackie Chan has her copy of The Princess and the Frog, so he's periodically going through and reading passages from Princess and the Frog, and he loves to get stuck on that happily ever after thing. But Princess Pepe, which is played by, I believe it's Lucy Liu, is there, and she thought she was coming over to the U.S. to stay at this like grand property of this friend of her literacy teacher. It turns out she's there with an exile from the Forbidden City who is now basically human trafficking Asian immigrants to make them work on the railroad for practically nothing. So he's basically Asian slave labor being run by an Asian. And Pepe's there. And the three best warriors from the sect are of the Imperial Guard are sent to go rescue her. And Jackie Chan goes with them. He convinces them to let him go with him, partly because he overheard their plans to leave and he didn't stop her, so he says it's his fault. And the other thing that kind of convinced him is the interpreter that they're supposed to be guarding, who's supposed to be going over with the ransom money, is his uncle. And so his uncle's like, well, come on, he can carry the bags or something, And the emperor's like, well, hey, maybe they'll do us a favor and kill him. But Jackie Chan, of course, is still a phenomenal martial artist. And it's interesting to see him when he interacts. I thought of this one because, we're in November now. We're coming into Thanksgiving. So I wanted to think of a comedic movie with Indians in it. And it's got some interesting scenes where Jackie Chan is interacting with the Indians. And so I thought that was nice because it was two cultures that the white men didn't understand at all, which was the Asians and the Native Americans. And they don't understand each other. It's funny because Jackie Chan, trying to get his point across to the Indians, slows down what he says, and you see in the little caption when the Indians talk, it's like, yeah, he thinks by saying it slower we can understand better. And then another caption later on when he gets married off to like one of the chief's daughters, it's like, hey, look at the bright side. At least he's not a white guy.
Yeah.
So it's great fun. It's the really campy Jackie Chan mixed with campy Owen Wilson.
Isn't this the movie where Jackie Chan and Owen Wilson get locked in a jail at some point, and Jackie Chan's plan to escape is to like pee on Owen Wilson's coat or shirt or whatever to make it stronger because it's wet, and then tie it around the bars of the jail and
basically make it
twist a pole or something. Yeah, so he can squeeze through, and then after they put in all the work to squeeze through the bars, the wall behind the cell that they were just in gets ripped away because Jackie Chan's Native American wife ripped the wall away with the horse on the outside.
Yes.
And then they're like, oh, we got to get right back into there.
I'm not even to that part yet in my rewatch because I put it on like a half hour before I came over to start prepping for the show. Before that I was kind of lost for an idea for the vault this week. Then I was like, whoa, wait a minute. Shanghai Noon. Perfect vault movie.
Yeah.
Because I want to get people to appreciate some of the older movies. And as you and I know, we've had some great vault experiences. Last week we talked about the Addams Family TV show. We've talked about Under Siege. We've talked about Freddy Krueger. We've talked about all kinds of neat little shows. We've talked about the original older versions of things like the Incredible Hulk and Captain America and stuff that made for TV movies and stuff. Because a lot of this is come out, we're building from that. But in those earlier years, they were doing it without the special effects capabilities that we have today.
Yeah.
And that's why I want to always...
Hey, Jackie, how'd you get that shot? I like when Jackie Chan's asked by Steven Spielberg how you do the stunt. He's like, oh, very easy. Action, jump, hospital, cut. Or, action, jump, cut, hospital.
Repeat if necessary. Jackie Chan has hurt himself so many times on the set because he does all of his own stunts and he doesn't hold an ounce back. Okay, Jackie
He
Chan.
has
yeah.
he has a hole in his skull.
Yes, he was
Uh,
trained by the Japanese Opera House. Okay.
yeah.
Now, for those we think of opera house in the United States as people just singing, freaking Greek and Italian arias and shit. No, the Japanese opera house teaches one of the first things they teach is choreographed martial arts, and ballet, and knowing your own physicality, because the opera house in Japan is where Japanese cinema stars go to learn how to be Japanese cinema stars, where ours just all go to Hollywood, period. If you want to be a
Pretty
star in
much.
Japan, you go to a Japanese opera house to learn. And Jackie Chan and Shokashugi and Chow Yun Fat and Sammo Hung, they all went to the Japanese opera house to learn what they did. And they're so much better with their physicality when they do their martial arts than American stunt double martial artists who yes, they might know the actual martial art, but they don't have enough of awareness of how their body looks to the spectator. And that's what gives people like Jackie Chan an edge. And I think it's valuable if you ever want to go into cinema, especially cinema that features something like a mixed martial art of some kind. It's a good idea to be fully aware of not just where your body is placed for the combat choreography, but how it appears to the audience, because that's the secret to bringing these action scenes alive, and especially with the effortless comedic value that Jackie Chan brings to it. Because
Yeah,
Jackie
it's
Chan,
a performance as much as just a straight up martial art.
yeah.
My favorite outtakes of all time are from the Rush Hour movies because he just throws himself into everything he does.
Oh yeah, and he talked
Yeah.
Chris Tucker to do a lot of that stuff too during that movie set. And the thing is, it's like Abbott and Costello and the Three Stooges and stuff meets Bruce Lee and Chuck Norris. You've got the martial arts ability of Bruce Lee, Chuck Norris, Steven Seagal, and you've got the physical comedy of Abbott and Costello, the Three Stooges, and the Marx Brothers, and they're seamlessly combining those skills into something that is so much more than its parts. And
Yeah.
so I know a lot of us in the nerdosphere, especially here in Springfield, are all aspiring actors and voice actors and improv comedians and what have you. You can learn a lot from people that have that kind of dedication to their art, that they're willing to break bones and have a frequent flyer card at the hospital. Just like, yeah, can you punch my card before I leave? I think because they're in the hospital so much and the trauma ward from their latest stunt. I mean, Jackie Chan has probably got the highest amount of frequent flyer miles at a hospital. He's ready for a platinum membership.
But if you had to go to the emergency room, wouldn't you love being treated in the Jackie Chan suite?
Yeah, right?
You think he had his own room eventually?
Hey, I used to joke about it when I was going to the hospital all the time because of my conditions. I says, "You kidding? They named a ward after me. Just put me in my normal room." Because I was there so often, it felt like he should have just named the room after me. And so, and mine was from stuff that wasn't even a lot my fault. I was, I just have all these physical conditions. These guys are putting themselves out there and bodily breaking bones and straining ligaments and bruising muscles and causing cramps and all that because they're not letting anybody else stand in to do shit. They're doing it all themselves. And Jackie Chan is probably on the forefront of that movement.
He's a legend.
Yeah. Well, it's like the old vaudevillians. Like Danny Kaye. He used to do all of his own stuff. He did his own dancing. He did his own magic. He did ventriloquism and singing and all that. And he did each of those things. There was no stand-in or voiceover person to do it. He did it all. That's why to this day, Danny Kaye is my favorite entertainer of all time. Because back in the vaudeville days, you had to do everything to be an entertainer. You couldn't just come in with one shtick.
Yeah.
Unless you
You were a
really
live
good.
performer. You were a live performer. You couldn't have a stand-in. You were just there.
If you were not like so phenomenally good at that one shtick wasn't enough. You had to have several shticks that you could blend together into an act. And you couldn't just have somebody stand in for you during your act, or that somebody else is going to steal the show. You have to do it all because there was no retakes and cuts and editing and stuff. You were doing this on stage for people.
Yeah.
There wasn't no slow motion instant replay crap.
Now I want to watch White Christmas again.
Yeah, it's almost that season. Okay, and that pretty much ends our regular show. We're going into the media now. Spoiler alert's coming through, and as I said, in the beginning of the year, we'll probably have some animated little cut scenes to get us into this section where we'll actually have something saying, spoiler alert, or something like that. Maybe a siren coming, woo, woo, spoiler alert, spoiler alert.
Yeah. No, nothing that sounds like a cop car or anything, because I hate it whenever I'm like listening to something in the car and then they have like police sirens go off. I'm like, fuck, where's that cop?
And any damn song that has a police siren as a sound effect in it, it's like I can't listen to it while driving.
Right?
Yeah.
Maybe
Why would you do that?
Maybe I'll go more the Dalek route. Exterminate, and find a way to say spoiler alert, spoiler alert. But we'll do something. We're going to collaborate on that, and hopefully, if it's not ready by the new year, in the beginning of the new year, at some point, barring complications with my health and everything else, hopefully we'll get some of that done too. But reason I'm being so profuse in this part is because at this point in time, we usually bid adieu to Greg for the night. Is that going to be that way again this week?
Yes, it is.
Okay, you can catch
But
Greg.
I'll see people. Yeah, I'll see people tomorrow on Queen City Cardboard. I'll be starting at 10. Oh, that reminds me. I know what I'm going to be playing tomorrow because Steam had a sale. Freebird Games, they made an excellent story game called To the Moon, and a sequel and a couple of other games. And their entire catalog is on sale. Their most recent game that came out like a month ago is 15% off. Everything else, including soundtracks, is at least 75% off. I bought their entire game catalog for less than $10.
Nice.
Wow.
So, in other words, you're going to be seeing some Steam classics tomorrow. You start at 10 o'clock?
Starting at 10 o'clock, I'll do the stream for about 3 hours. And after that, I'm going to swing by Holdfast per my usual routine. But at 4 o'clock, I'm going to be at Banter Brewing Company because Banter Brewing Company is finally opening tomorrow.
Okay, so we got another brewing
So
company.
I might bring a couple games with me there.
So if you get a chance, you might be able to go in and play some games with them if you're willing to check out Banter Brewing Company. Little middle of the week, middle of the day kind of thing to go do. And have some fun with it. Otherwise, you can catch up with him at Queen City Cardboard on Twitch when he is broadcasting, which right now his main broadcast is, of course, his Thursday morning show and being here with us on Wednesdays. And then otherwise, you can go ahead and see him at Holdfast Brewing Company on the third Wednesday of every month doing the board game thing. And then, of course, I didn't mention it before, but they also do a puzzle battle there where basically they give teams of players all the same puzzle and then they see who can put it together fastest. And they've got great microbrews, excellent food, great atmosphere, and great people. So definitely take a chance to go over there to Holdfast Brewing Company and say hi to Greg and let us know how we're doing here on the show and anything you might want to hear us talk about, because Greg's our live correspondent on the spot there that you can kind of touch bases with live and in person. So you have a good night, Greg, and
Good night. You as well.
we will see you next week.
See you then.
Bye-bye.
See you there.
Okay, and now we're going to go into our media coverage, and this is a week that we've been waiting on because it was the season finale for Stargirl this week, and one of the last 3 episodes of Supergirl was this week. There's a double episode of Supergirl next week to finish out the entire show. Because it's not just a season finale, it's a series finale. So we're going to finally see the last of that next week. So we're looking forward to that. But this is one more day that builds up to that. But Stargirl's the big hit for this week. And of course, we visited with Legends of Tomorrow again. Although, for the life of me, I'm trying to... Oh, yes. I watched it so long ago, I was trying to remember what the episode was about.
It's all about Gideon.
Yeah. It's actually a phenomenal episode, and that's what we're going to kick off with. So let's jump right into that.
It's all about Gideon. Did you
First
catch
up,
the title of the episode?
No.
It read like an error message. Hang on, let me pull it up because it was kind of cool. I thought my thing was glitched or something, right? But it was actually just the way that they were. It was just a strange title, and it's in reference to Gideon glitching. Let's see here. It was. Well, let's see. Hang on. What season are we on? Oh, here we go. Episode 3 was called WVDR_error. Or so WVDR_error_100 less than OEST of TH3GS dot Gideon not found. It looks like code.
Total code syntax error, yeah. All right.
Yeah.
So, first off, let me tell you the big thing about this episode. Yes, it's all about Gideon, but the big thing that this opened him up for, which we have not had in a long time, is guest appearances by a bunch of the old members of the Wave Rider crew. The older legends have spots in this. It's a great chance to see some of the old favorites through Gideon's memories. But they interact.
It's episode 100. It was episode 100, so they had a... Yeah.
Yeah, traditionally when you get to some of these benchmark episodes, they try to do something special in honor. In this case, we took a stroll down memory lane with Gideon, the personification of Gideon, and it allowed us to see brief visits with Ray Palmer and Rip Hunter and Hawkman, and we got Captain Cold. Yeah, so we got to see some of the original and later on growing members of the Wave Rider crew. We've seen Professor Stein. We've seen what's his name, the kid that was with Stein. Who was that?
Jax.
That's right. Jackson. Yes. Jackson or Jax, which was the second part, the second member of the Firestorm Matrix.
Firestorm.
The first member of the Firestorm Matrix that was in the driver's seat, as it were, was played by Robbie Amell, which is Stephen Amell's brother, who played, of course, Oliver Queen. and it also happened to be what's her name's fiance in The Flash, and of course that's
Yeah.
where Caitlyn's fiance in The Flash, and of course that's where Firestorm was first introduced. Because a lot of the metas in the CW verse got introduced mainly through The Flash. The tradition was regular villains were introduced in Arrow, like super science and super martial arts villains, and then later some magic villains. The Flash is where you got metahumans, most of them caused by the Starlab reactor thing. And then when Supergirl joined, a lot of the villains from Supergirl were aliens. So that's kind of how they broke down the introductions to the different things in the multiverse. And then a lot of the extras from those shows came together, specifically from Flash and Arrow, came together to join the Wave Rider with Rip Hunter. And villains and heroes. That's the biggest part of it, is when he was recruiting. Their original mission was to stop Vandal Savage, and it was not all heroes, because Captain Cold and Mr. Rory, as they call him now, but I forget what his, I think Heat Blast or something was his name before.
Heatwave.
Heatwave, yeah. Heatwave and
Yeah.
Captain Cold joined the Wave Rider as bad guys. We had the immortal Hawkman and Hawkgirl. We had Ray Palmer, who came directly over from Arrow. And we had Sarah Lance, who came over from Arrow.
Yeah.
And they were the original members of the Wave Rider, plus Firestorm.
Yeah. So this episode was pretty cool. Getting to see all these characters through the memories of Gideon, from the past, from the whole series, just like glimpses of the past.
It was nice to see Jax as kind of an external character, because he was the maintenance guy for the Wave Rider and Gideon for so long. And a unique thing is, when we saw him as just the maintenance guy separate from the memories, he had a British accent, which is funny because the actor that plays Jax is British.
And then, whenever we saw him in memories, he had this American accent.
Yes, because we do take that a lot. A lot of our British actors come over to America, and instead of taking advantage of the British accent, they take roles where they have to do a American accent. Perfect example of that is Hugh Laurie as House.
Or Tom Holland as Spider-Man.
Exactly. I mean, we do get a lot of them that do come over and use their natural accents in movies, like James Marsters will come over, and he'll have his thicker British accent in a lot of the roles he plays. But they also have the ability they're better at mimicking American accents than we are at mimicking their true accents. So they come over and they do that, and they take a lot of our great things. And then there's some that just don't ever bother with an American accent, like what's his name? Can't even think of his name now. But he was nearly Headless Nick. John Cleese. Some of them they don't even bother. They just keep their British accent and go. Or like Maggie Smith, who was Professor McGonagall.
Anyway, so in this episode, the main threat of this episode was like a portion of Gideon's programming that was trying to resort back to her original state by erasing the memories of her life with the legends, so she can refocus on preserving the timeline instead of having a personality.
Yeah, basically the setup was the Astra and Spooner and Gideon were traveling, and they come across a pie in a windowsill, and Astra tells Gideon to go get that pie, because they need to eat. And Spooner's like, no, you can't just take that pie. And Gideon was like, well, that pie is actually historically significant, and went over and gave you a little brief thing. And then basically they went and they asked Gideon to make up the decision for herself. Well, this caused a programming error loop because she couldn't do that decision for herself. And it basically caused her to go into a catatonic state. Each of them turned to the other and at the same time practically said, you broke Gideon. And they use one of Astra's spells to go into Gideon's mind, knowing that Gideon herself has to guide them out. So if they can't find Gideon, they could be stuck in there forever. And when they come in, they encounter the British accented Jax. And they go
He's
through...
trying to help them. He's trying to... Yeah. He's explaining how they're in her mind and they need to basically do... Have you ever seen the movie Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind?
The Eternal Sunshine on the Spotless Mind, yes, with Jim Carrey.
Yeah, Jim Carrey. It's very much like that, where there's someone erasing memories, and the main characters are going through memories to try to restore them. I mean, in Eternal Sunshine, they were just trying to hide in them. As this, they were actively trying to restore memories faster than they could be erased, basically.
Right. And they find out after the very first memory they go back to that there's somebody actively trying to stop them, and it turns out to be the original Gideon programming subroutine. And as they explore a memory later on in the episode, we find out that Gideon had expressed worry about the legends and discontent with their methods and their impact on the timeline. And so Rip Hunter went and wrote a new protocol for Gideon, so that now her first priority was not the timeline. Her first priority was now to protect the legends and to learn from the legends. And that's why she's evolved into an almost fully sentient construct instead of just being the computer program she always was.
Yeah.
And so they go through and they see several of the memorable moments. They see a holiday-themed episode where they celebrated all the holidays at once because they're riding up and down the time stream. So, it's hard to celebrate Christmas and Easter and Thanksgiving and all. So they did 11 birthday cakes or something like that.
Yeah. Now these significant memories they're going to, they have to get the key memories. And all these key memories are key moments in Gideon's lifetime, basically, with the legends, where she realized something or she learned something that was profound to her at the time of witnessing it or experiencing it.
It allowed her to become more human-ish.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
when she chose to think in terms of love isn't logical. That lesson, that she learned from Ava.
Or when she learned about how when a song is in your heart, you guys got to let it come out. And that was from Professor Stein.
Yeah.
Who was just doing the whole zippity-doo-dah kind of thing. I don't remember what song he was singing, but or when she sings karaoke, And
so
find out Gideon's the best singer on the Wave Rider, but that's because of the computer.
So it's kind of a fun romp through her memories that gives us an excuse to see all these other characters that we haven't seen in a long time, or angles of a situation we haven't seen.
It's pretty much everything you always wanted to see in a CW show for the pure fun of it, as only the Legends could do it. This is a reason we like the Legends so much, because they can be this.
And then and as you'd expect, by the time we get to the end, things kind of like escalate and seem more dangerous, and then eventually Gideon gets the opportunity to destroy the subroutine, but chooses not to and says we're going to coexist. Of course, I'm going to take the pilot seat, but you and I can coexist, so you can try to learn from me.
Right.
And they escape her mind and make it back to the barn and have to figure out if they're going to eat that pie or not.
Right, and then Gideon goes and gets the pie, and that pretty much ends the episode. We pretty much see nothing of the rest of the Legends in the real world.
We literally see nothing else of the other Legends in the real world, but we do see that super genius guy from the Alien season where so I don't remember his name right now, but that guy who clones himself a bunch and created the Avas.
Right. The guy who created the
he had his memory wiped, and so the quote-unquote good guy version of him had his memory wiped, but now he's back in his own timeline. He's having dreams about his time with the Legends of Tomorrow. And also, you find out that he has the circular object that he figures out ends up being a copy of Gideon that he took while he was with the Legends. And
it's a Gideon hard drive. It's one of the Gideon hard drives.
Yeah, Gideon. Yeah, with a backup of her basically on there. And he is, he can't remember being on the ship. He just knows he woke up one day with this drive in his pocket and, flashes of memories over time about those days, but can't remember anything specific.
And we end the episode with him doing something similar to what Rip Hunter did. He talks about doing it. He doesn't actually do it because we end the episode right then, but he says he's basically going to rewrite her protocols so that she has to listen to
does rewrite. He basically did successfully do that. He reset her.
Yeah, he reset her protocols. And then the episode ended before we could really do anything.
But of that backup, he reset her protocols to restore her back to fixing anachronisms. So that's her only objective in that copy.
And so those of you who have watched tonight's episode realize we haven't yet, because we won't get to watch it until after 6 o'clock tomorrow, because the CW app is being stupid and not letting us watch right after midnight like we used to and got used to doing.
Yeah.
But we will bring you an update of that next week. But otherwise, we're going to leave the Legends to go. Now, I want to do Stargirl last because that's the one that's been basically going to end. Plus, traditionally, she would have been last anyway. So, next is Supergirl. Now, in Supergirl, how did it start? Let me see. Trying to remember here. They're talking about having the British newspaper guy shows up and says, among other things, that he's cleared this special place in a private room at a restaurant for the bachelorette party of Alex and Kelly. Since they're both bachelorettes, because it's a gay marriage, they only have to have one bachelorette party, and they get to go to them together. See, convenience. I mean, people argue about these things. There's convenience in here. And you can watch to make sure they don't misbehave. That may not always be as convenient as you think. Anyway. And then they find out that there's this report that comes on Catco that's got excerpts from Lex Luthor's diary. Now, remember from
Yeah.
previous episodes, the British guy got the copy of the diary from that one servant of Lex's, that idiot
He
guy.
didn't. No, he didn't get a copy of it. He just got some information from the servant.
But he got some
How the
information.
newspaper got it, how Keiko got it. Yeah, he got some information, but he did not get the journal. The journal was retrieved by Andrea Rojes herself by using her shadow powers or whatever
That's
to
right.
steal it from Lex's house.
Right.
Yeah.
But the report was given the byline of the British commentator without his permission.
Yeah.
And he basically went off on Andrea, saying, "Look, you're making yourself as bad as Lex and anybody else because you're not doing it for the news. You're not doing it for the people's rights to know. You're just doing it to try to get ahead of everybody else. You know, and
You're doing it to be number one.
That's just as bad as Lex doing it to rule the world, kind of thing. You know, you're not worrying about anybody getting hurt in the process." And he apologizes to Super Friends. He says he didn't do it, and all that. He also ends up getting killed off in the episode.
Because of it.
Because of it, by Lex Luthor.
Lex is pissed off about that journal getting published.
Especially, he didn't do it, but Lex thinks he did. I mean, Lex arranged for him to meet the underling, but Lex did not arrange for him to steal and read the journal, and he believes he actually did do that when he didn't. It was Andrea. They managed to get the Dream Totem from Nixley and Lex, and
the Dream Totem and the Truth Totem.
And eventually the Truth Totem. But first they get the Dream Totem back, and among other things, that allows Dreamer to, because Nixley tries to banish them to the Dream Realm, but Dreamer has that totem now, so they're in the Dream Realm, and she can instantly bring them right back. So they land right back on Earth. They were barely in the Dream Realm for a minute.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, for seconds. Yeah.
And then the next battle, they get the Strength Totem. No, not the Strength Totem. The Truth Totem, which Nixley had used to basically tell if Lex Luthor was telling the truth to her. And it is looking like it. And then she basically made a flat-out declaration to Lex. It's like, look, I don't know what I can do with, every time we get something in our grasp, the power, and then you keep giving it up to save me and stuff. And I'm finding it harder and harder not to trust you. And Brainy talks to the future, basically talks to Wynn, although we don't see Wynn. There's no graphical representation of Wynn. There's just squiggly lines on the screen. But he's told that he has to come back to the future to help fix the overbrain matrix that controls all of the members of Brainy's race. And he's the one that has to fix it. The Coluans, that's the name, yes.
Yeah.
And then later on, a version of Brainy comes back and talks to Brainy about how it has to be him. And he doesn't want to go because he's got a life here in the past.
So that Brainy that he's talking to didn't come from the future per se. It was one of the other Brainies that's inside of his mind.
Oh, okay.
You might remember a while back he got multiple Brainies inside of him.
Right. And he's saying how he doesn't want to go. He wants to stay because he's in love with Dreamer and he's got a life here and he's part of the Super Friends and, but he's finding out he has to go. And he has a very touching scene with Dreamer later on where Dreamer has to basically accept the fact because he's doing it to save his entire race. It's not like he can say no. And she's like, I thought you said there was no secrets. He's like, well, I literally just barely found out, trying to figure out what I'm doing with it before I told you anything.
Yeah. I've known for about 5 minutes.
Yeah. There is a little bit of, I got to get a little window here. You can't just expect me to blurt it out when I first see you after it happens. No, hi, how you doing? It's like, oh, by the way, they want me back in the future. It's a little cold.
Oh, she dreamed. I don't think they even had a chance to talk yet. Like, she dreamed about it within minutes of him learning about it, and they hadn't seen each other face to face until she comes to him and she's like, so you're leaving here to go back to the future? Oh, what? Yeah. Why haven't you told me? I just found out myself.
Right? I haven't even said hi to you yet. We haven't had our morning cup of coffee. Fuck. What the fuck? Please allow me to... I feel like I've been in the argument before. Allow me to have my first cup of coffee for the morning first. Come on. And Supergirl gets in an argument with Alex on how to raise Chloe because Supergirl is pointing out that there's these glasses she used to have that would suppress her powers that allowed her to get along a little bit better when she was in school. And Alex is like, no, we don't want to suppress her powers. We want her to be able to be comfortable with them. And it's not like when Kara was a kid. Now aliens are known and recognized and sort of accepted. They're not as accepted as she was making it out to be, but yeah. So, and then they find out that there was another type of alien that joined her class that ended up being the cause for a lot of Chloe's acting out in the first place. She was duplicating the powers of this other alien. And they also got a brain or an energy scan off of Chloe that found fifth dimensional energy. And so they're starting to figure out that little growth on her back of her neck is actually the love totem reconstituting itself. But they haven't quite 100% made that leap yet, but they're starting to theorize that that's it, but they're not absolutely sure.
Well, that happened at the end of the episode where they suggested that could be the case. So then they went back to, they decided to go see her real quick. Can't end their party early to go see her because they think she might be the love totem reconstituted. But they come back to find the girl missing and William shot because he was babysitting her.
Right.
And Lex Luthor and Nixley shows up and shoots him and steals the kid.
Right, and that's how we pretty much end the episode. So...
Yeah, and that pretty much confirms it for them, I think, that she definitely is the love totem.
And,
because they realize the tattooed... Or marking. The marking looks similar to the totem, and so they've... I think it's safe to say they realize that she is the totem. The love totem.
Yeah, reconstituted. But the Super Friends have most of the totems, which I think is going to end up being like part of Nixley and Luthor's plan anyway, because then they're all in one place so they can steal them all back at once.
They have the Super Friends have 5 out of 7. They have 5 out of 7, and Nixley and Lex have 1, but the one they have is that little girl.
Right. And then we have to figure out what that final totem's going to be. We're really set up for a big double episode next week. The only other thing that's happening is Lex is working on a super suit army, which is kind of like, I want to say the one protocol from Iron Man 3 where all the armored bots come out and fight together.
The house party.
House party, yeah, that's
the house party protocol or something.
I think this is the DC version of the house party protocol, because there'll be a bunch of seats fighting by themselves. Because let's face it, Luthor and Nixley don't have that many allies to fill suits. But he said a super suit army. To me, that means house party. But we'll find out next week during our double episode.
We did see one of them in this episode that was dismantled by Martian Manhunter.
Right.
We saw one super suit that didn't have a person inside of it.
Right, which is also...
But an army would be a lot harder.
It adds credence to my claim that it's going to be a house party kind of protocol.
Yeah.
Now, finally, we'll just skip Stargirl. No, of course we're not going to skip Stargirl. Stargirl's epic finish for season 2 and setup for season 3. Okay.
Yeah.
What we've got here right now is Eclipso is fighting with Courtney and gets Courtney to admit that she hates Eclipso. That kernel of hate gives Eclipso an opening into Courtney, and he possesses her. So then we see the Courtney with the half Calypso face.
Yeah.
Now, coming together to fight. Go ahead.
I was going to say before we get to there, because that's near the end of the episode. That's like the climax. That's at the climax of the episode. Before we get to there, we see like all the heroes fighting together to try to stop him. We've got Thunderbolt. We've got Mikey wearing the stripe armor. Using chainsaws and flamethrowers on him.
We got Jennifer the Green
Solomon
Lantern.
Grundy.
Solomon Grundy comes
Jennifer
in
the Green Lantern.
because Rick is unable to repair the hourglass to make it work, but he still has strength, and his strength is through Solomon Grundy. But Solomon Grundy does get killed.
Yes. Solomon Grundy gets in a few good hits, but then gets a huge hole blasted through his chest by Eclipso.
Shade shows up. Beth's parents find out that she's a superhero now. And they act totally gaga about it, which is totally making Beth uncomfortable. Cindy is in there in the battle. Partly as the battle goes on, we find that Cindy contacted Artemis, who broke her parents out of jail. So we get Sportsmaster and what's her name? His wife.
Vixen?
Something like that.
Yeah, and Sportsmaster's daughter, whatever she goes by. Artemis.
Artemis,
the three of them come to help.
Artemis is her actual name. I don't know if she has a fight name or not. But
Yeah,
Artemis is her real name. And it makes a good enough superhero name that she doesn't necessarily need to pick a different one.
So Shade shows up and helps.
Yeah, I said Shade already.
Okay.
But the big reveal is as Courtney is doing battle, and she's been possessed by Eclipso and stuff. They're trying to talk her down and say, embrace the light. We know that there's good in her and stuff. Who shows up? But
before you say it real quick, I want to also mention that Eclipso, a big part of Eclipso's plan required him to possess the person who wields the rod because it gives him power over light. He has power over darkness. He needs power over the light so he can consume the world and turn himself into a god. And that's why he's after Courtney, and that's why he's after whoever owns that rod, the cosmic rod.
Not just anybody can pick up and wield the rod. As far as we knew, only one. Well, actually two. Because then in the episode, Joel McHale shows up, which, if you remember, we've not seen since episode 1 of Summer School, when he was looking for Pat Dugan. And so Starman is there.
Yeah, Starman shows up, grabs onto the rod, and says, because Eclipso's holding the rod, going, only one can wield the power of the light, or something. And then Starman himself pops up out of nowhere, grabs it, and goes, well, maybe two.
Right. And so, and they battle basically for the psyche of Courtney, and drive Eclipso out. And then Eclipso's being attacked, and the new kid that has the Thunderbolt wishes he was toast, so he literally becomes a piece of toast with the half moon or a crescent moon kind of burn mark in it.
Yeah.
And they're basically told to put it away like the Black Diamond.
It was funny,
less glamorous than the Black Diamond.
Nobody eat it. No one eat that toast.
Right? But then,
Uh,
so we had our big finale. So everything's kind of back to normal. They're getting ready for a big family dinner at the end of summer school. She's like, I'm last day of summer school for Courtney, and somebody bought the house next door, and Beth's parents are trying to come up with suit ideas like nanotechnology and new color schemes, and Beth is like, "Oh God, get me out of here!" And
yeah. She's a
um,
little overwhelmed by her parents obsessing over their daughter being a superhero,
yeah,
which is
and
pretty adorable, to be honest. It's kind of great.
yeah, Yolanda has decided to stay. She's not giving up the suit and stuff now. Jennifer is back to go look for her brother. Dr. McNider goes to look for his wife, and Beth reveals that she knows where his wife is. So
Yep.
so he knows where to go. You know, they're getting ready to sit down to dinner. Mike is talking about going to a movie or whatever with Jaqueen, the
The
guy
kid
who
who
has
has the
the
Thunderbolt now.
Thunderbolt. And they talked about the neighbors moving in. Somebody bought the house, and then the doorbell rings, and Pat, who's already sitting down, has a broken arm and stuff, but nobody else goes towards the door. Says, "There, I'll go get it." I thought that was kind of that was telling.
Oh, I don't know if you noticed, but like before he got up, while he was still at the table, and Pat wasn't the center of attention, like Courtney was. In the background, Mike was trying to arm wrestle Pat with his, he was trying to arm wrestle Pat's broken arm.
Anyway,
I was like, Mike's being a little dick back there.
so he opens up the
But
front
yeah,
door,
Pat opens the door.
and there is freaking Vixen, Crusher, and Artemis with muffins, basically saying, we're back. How's it going, neighbors?" And they're like, "Oh my God, no!"
Yeah,
But there's a
Courtney,
lot of
Courtney sees him and goes, "What the?" And then the credits start.
and there's a lot of people on the internet are even saying they would love to see they want to see more interplay between Crush and Pat Dugan, and they'd love to see just a spin-off series of just them. But I don't know about that. I think it'd get old pretty quick. But
yeah, it's pretty good, but not enough for its own show. Yeah,
not Courtney. What's her name? Evil bitch. Cindy talks to Yolanda and basically says, "I know Courtney's not going to go along with it unless you back me on this. I want to become a JSA member." I was saying how you had to embrace the dark side to beat Eclipse. It turned out to be the opposite. You had to embrace your light side. And so I want to try to do that, and I want to become a member of the JSA. We never quite hear what Yolanda's answer to this is. But so we basically know that we've got the Sportsmaster family possibly joining. We have Cindy possibly joining the JSAs. Also, we see Shade come up to Rick as he's burying Solomon Grundy. And one of the things that he tells Rick is, "I wouldn't worry so much about Solomon Grundy because if you bury him in the right place, he's been known to come back." Because for those who don't know the origin, Solomon Grundy is a sentient zombie, which means he's already dead in the first place. It's not like you can really keep him down for long. If you find the right voodoo ritual, he's back up again.
Yeah, if you bury him at the right place at the right time, he has a tendency to come back.
Right, so we've not seen the last of Solomon Grundy. And maybe the more he comes back, the more intelligence he'll get back.
Yeah.
And we'll get more of the half-intelligent Solomon Grundy. Who knows?
Also, Shade, I think, if I remember right, Shade said he intends on sticking around, too. He finds
Shade
the kids interesting.
He finds them interesting, but we also know that he's always out for a number one himself. So there's in season 3, there's bound to be times when they don't agree.
Yeah.
Finally, we have a cut. Go ahead.
I was gonna say he nearly died before, like we talked about in the previous episode. But the convergence of the Dark Worlds coming into the Shadowruns, coming into the regular world, fully recovered him quickly. Like it fully restored him over Shade
Altogether.
to full strength.
Yes, so
Yeah.
he's back to his full mojo. Now, final
Yeah.
cutscene. We're back to where we found Jennifer in that little orphanage area, and the old lady is talking to somebody just off camera about how Jennifer has not only found friends, but he's found friends that are powered like she is. So super
Yeah.
powered friends and stuff. And she
And
says where it
they
is.
refer to her as she refers to her as Green Lantern's daughter.
Right.
Came
And then-
looking for a brother, but has found friends.
Okay. And then
Yep.
they cut to the bad guy that she's talking to, and his face looks like a skull. It's kind of like Red Skull, but not red. And if you were familiar with the comics, that's Bone Man, who was one of the early JSA enemies, who tried to take control of the JSA for his own purposes, the new JSA, when Courtney took over. And so it's going to be interesting to see what the Bone Man and his cohorts do as probably the primary villains in the next season, which is, we now found, is going to be subtitled Frenemies, which is kind of an obvious title considering all the villains and heroes coming together.
Also, so we have him coming in as a bad guy. Also, I don't think we mentioned this. The original Starman is going to stick around, live in the basement of Courtney and Pat's house or whatever,
and teach her how to use the staff.
Train Courtney.
Yes.
Teach her how to use the staff.
The only other thing from the cutscene that we did not cover was we're back to the mural that Icicle's son finished painting.
Yeah.
And then his grandparents show up, and they're saying, we've got to tell you, the truth about us. And then you kind of see their faces start to chill out a little bit, because I still theorize that they're frost giants, basically. They're members of the ice giant subculture of the Norse mythology.
Yeah.
But they may not be in giant form anymore, but they're like ice warriors. But we never get the son's reaction because we cut away from that. But that's all the different things we've got building up. So we don't know if he's going to follow in Icicle's footsteps as a bad guy for vengeance for his father, because his father was good to him. And his grandparents, of course, are good to him. But on the other hand, he's got such a good heart that if he does become an enemy, it's only because they're going to convince him that Courtney is not on the side of the angels. So it shouldn't be too long before he changes sides. But then again, we don't know what interference Bone Lord is going to come back with, the Bone Man.
Yeah.
And, of course, the different things that Shade gets up to. Not to mention their other allies in Cindy and Sportsmaster's family. So we got a whole lot coming on next season. I cannot freaking wait for season 3. I mean, I wish it was starting like right now. Come on. I mean, I need my fix, goddammit. That's it. Now, nothing else to really be in the release. No big movie releases. We had Dune release last week, but neither me nor Lurch really went through Dune. I tried a couple of times, but as many people may or may not know, I'm not a big fan of Frank Herbert or Dune. Although I've read the first 5 books and I watched the earlier adaptations. I tried twice and couldn't get through this one.
I ended up finally watching it. Allie wanted to watch it. She wanted to watch it a second time. She watched it on her phone first, then she wanted to watch it on the big TV, so we watched it together.
If you're a fan of Dune, I guess it was good, but he's so dry.
Yeah. It does feel like a really long prequel to a movie.
Right? And then it's got some serious star power in it. I mean, it's got Dave Bautista in it. It's got Jason Momoa in it. I mean, it's got some star power.
Yeah.
But, and it was all said and done, we're just not going to do a review on this show for it.
Yeah. Yeah. I just make the quick comment that it felt like it was a 2.5 hour adventure to set up the next movie.
Yeah, it's like a 2.5 hour trailer for the next movie.
Not trailer, prequel, or whatever.
Introduction, something.
Not prequel, prologue. A 2.5 hour prologue to a movie. That's kind of how it felt to me.
So, let's see. Ooh, we're half an hour after our time anyway, so we couldn't cover any more.
Yeah. I'm getting thirsty and hungry and ready to go.
Next week, if possible, depending on if we can get out to see it, Eternals comes out day after tomorrow. So that's going to be something to consider.
Yeah.
If I can go find somebody to go see it with, I might go see Eternals. I'm almost guaranteed Lurch will find somebody to see it with.
Yeah, Angel and I are gonna watch it this weekend, and then I'm gonna probably watch it again with Allie in another week or two. So I'll be seeing it a couple of times in theaters.
Right, and I don't go to theaters that much, but this is one I would go to the theaters for. So I might have to check with my best day and see if she wants to go. I know it's not big enough one for Allison to want to sit in the theaters for, but we may or may not be reviewing that next week. Even if we did review it next week, because it would be the first week after its release, it would be the less spoilery review first.
Yeah. Yeah.
But hopefully I can see it before our last show of the season. And if I do that, in fact, we might even have a big kind of media show because we got a couple other things that are releasing in November. And basically anything that releases before November 24th that we have a chance to actually watch.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we'll try it. Excuse me. But we're going to call it for the night. Thank you, everybody, for being here. I'm going to make it a quick log off because I can barely breathe. So, have a good night.
Yeah, have a good night. We've been game day, or sorry, game time from the Gaming Arts Media Entertainment Expo folks, Eclectic Endeavors. You can find other videos I have on YouTube for me for Love Claw Studios. Greg at Queen City Cardboard. Oh boy, I think we're ready to sign off. Peace out.
I muted myself, but yeah, peace out.